Guys, I want to thank the following sponsors of the podcast. I want to thank GoHunt.com, my friend Cody Nelson of 25 plus years. I call him the glassing guru. He's the optics authority. He's the optics manager at GoHunt.com Gear Shop. If you guys have any interest in purchasing optics at all or have any questions, give Cody a call directly at 702-847-8747. That's extension 2. You can also email him directly at optics@gohunt.com or call him or text him on his cell phone, 602-399-3699. I want to thank Go Hunt Optics Department for their sponsorship of this podcast. I also want to thank the Go Hunt Insider. Remind you guys that if you go to gohunt.com/jscott, you're going to get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card just for signing up. I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. You can find out more about KUIU, which is the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. I also wear it on my fishing trips. Pretty much everything I wear. You can go to their website, which is KUIU.com, KUIU.com, to find out more. It's also a direct-to-consumer website, so you won't find this in any retailers. You can order directly off the website. Go to KUIU.com, KUIU.com. Phonescope.com, use the JScott20 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount on all orders. Guys, I also want to tell you about a new sponsor of the podcast, Kyle Lynch, who is also a former Army Ranger who served with the 2nd Battalion, the 75th Ranger Regiment in Iraq and Afghanistan. Kyle has also been a deputy sheriff and volunteer firefighter, and he is really involved on the tactical side. He is actually co-owner of a company based in Georgia called Armageddon Gear. They do a ton of stuff that serves the military and commercial, tactical, and competitive shooting markets. But he has designed a really cool elk call carrier, and he's launched a new website called allelk.com. Go check out the Bugle Mule. The Bugle Mule is a mouth call elk call carrier that is he's made it where it fits right out on the outside of a bugle tube. It carries up to 3 calls. Go check it out at allelk.com. For a limited time, the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners can get a 10% discount there at allelk.com. Put in the promo code JSO10 for 10% off. I want to thank allelk.com. I want to thank Kyle for his service to our country, and I want to thank him for the sponsorship of this podcast. Guys, without these podcast sponsors, I wouldn't be able to put the amount of time that I do into this. So I want to thank them, and I want to thank you. Let's get right into the episode. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have a special episode with a good friend of the podcast, Chris Rowe of Rowe Hunting Resources. Chris, how you doing?
Doing all right, my friend. How are you?
Doing pretty good. You know, we've had you on for a turkey episode and 2 elk episodes, and guys keep sending me messages asking for more, and I thought I'd have you on again. We're getting pretty darn close to archery elk season starting, and thought it would be a great opportunity to have you on the podcast again. And I just was on Rowe Hunting Resources in the elk module, and watched several of the new videos. One was very, very gut-wrenching, the High Country Redemption, showing your season last year, and you know, to watch the highs and lows and the ups and downs. It's something that all of us that have hunted have been through, and I thought you captured the essence of the hunt and the essence of the situation. You know, you captured it perfectly, and the crazy thing is you were all by yourself, and you were able to capture all of that. You know, the true highs and lows, with the lows being the lowest of lows, and that was kind of an amazing hunt. I really appreciated you posting that, and you know, it's not often that we see on YouTube or on hunting shows those low points, and the reality is, as hunters, it's something that we all face, and you know, the people that have not faced it yet, they're gonna they just have to hunt long enough.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people will be able to relate to it.
Yeah, and for those that haven't watched it yet, it's in the elk module. But basically, and actually, it was my 2012 hunt. It was kind of I've been sitting on it for a while because, like you said, I mean, it's not something that's fun to watch. And for those who haven't seen it, I guess let me just kind of take a step back. Yeah, I shot this bull 11 yards. I thought the shot was perfect. I mean, it's 11 yards. Come on, it's 11 yards. And he was walking past me. I stopped him. He kind of went by me a little bit. And I knew he was quartering away, and I shot, and I thought I smoked him. I thought I put it right straight through his lungs and basically caught the offside leg because I went and found my arrow, and it's covered in bubbles. It's pass through, so arrow's covered in blood, but there's bubbles all over the veins and all over the arrows, and so in the arrow, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, double lung hit, he's toast. And he runs down the hill and then stops. Where he stops, I can't get another shot into him, but he stops and he just stands there. And he stands there and he stands there and stands there. And so like minutes go by every second that the clock ticks, now I'm like, something is not right. He should be just piled over. Well, the whole second half, the first half of the video is very consistent with the instructional stuff that we do on the module. There's a lot of instruction in, why I'm where I am, how am I doing it, why am I doing it, why am I calling this way, and et cetera, et cetera.
By the way, that was a textbook call-in. I mean, you were dictating the pace, you were waiting on him, you weren't over-calling. I thought, I love how you just let the camera run so people can actually realize the timing, because I think there's so much out there on how to call elk, but the reality is there's not a lot in the timing. And I think one of the things that I picked up, and not to get off the subject of what we're talking about, but I really like the fact that you let that bull think about it. You let him think about it, and then he finally hit you, and then you kind of answered back a little bit, with some emotion. But to see that textbook call in with the few amount of calls that you actually gave was pretty cool.
Well, and I thank you. I mean, because it is when I'm sharing the video, and you kind of just touched on it. What you see on TV, on the outdoor channel or sportsman channel or whatever, you've got, 22 minutes or 23 minutes of footage that you got to pack in, and you can't think around. So you're just touching the highlights, bam, 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 bam. And so when you see somebody call in an elk, they're usually, here we are, we set up, we made some calls, ooh, the bull bugled, now he's in front of us, ooh, we killed him. Well, yeah, but that may have just taken you 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long it took. And so there's a balance on what you show and how you show it. And one thing that I learned pretty quickly, well, I guess I can't say I learned, I just committed to it. The time that lags in between me making a call and maybe the bull answering, or between me making a call and the bull actually coming in, I think is important for people to see, because that shows you that, yes, you do need to have some patience in letting setups work. Now, there's some videos I show, like the 108 video and the strategies and actions that, literally within 6 minutes, I located the bull and the bull was 7 steps in front of me. I mean, it was just bam, right now. However, this one and some of the other ones, I mean, it takes, 10 minutes for that. I mean, I'm within 100 yards of him. He's probably, 80 yards from me at this point, when I first started calling. It takes some time. Well, showing that, there's a lot of educational benefit from that. But by the same token, you're sitting there watching a bunch of nothing happen for 8 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, but that's why I put the commentary in there. Okay, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm patient. This is why I'm letting this work up. Let this setup work a little bit. Okay, the bull just did this. This is what he's thinking. Okay, so there's a lot of education to it, and there, I was worried when I first started that people would not appreciate the length that I allow the camera to go, but what I've received as feedback is that is why people absolutely love it, because now they get to see exactly what I see. I don't edit. The only time I edit stuff out, 99.9% of the time, the only time I edit stuff out is if I am moving from one point to the other and it's just random just movement. There's nothing, okay, I'm making my way closer to the bull.
Well, and a lot of times, too, you'll give a time lapse of, okay, 5 minutes has expired, or 10 minutes, or I just got over here in 30 seconds. So, you know, I think it's very important for people to understand that guys that are successful at calling, whether it be elk or turkeys, that you don't just make a call and they just run in. Sometimes that happens, but most of the time you have to finesse and you have to work those animals. And I think what I like so much about the strategies and actions, the videos, is it's taking a real life situation and you're playing the whole thing. So if you watch all the different videos, you kind of get a sense of, okay, that one was quick, okay, that one took longer, and I think it gives people a more realistic view of actually how the guys that consistently call stuff in, how they handle it. If you just heard an elk bugle and the next thing you know, which I got to be honest, most of my videos, I just show the elk coming in when they've finally, made their approach and are coming right in. I just cut right to the chase. But the reality is, from an educational standpoint, the timing is, I believe, as important as the sounds you're making.
And absolutely.
I think too many people expect it to happen right now, and he's not coming, and boom, they're off. Either going at him,
you nailed
and they walk right into him. Or they, leave and think that bull is not worth going after. I think people need to realize that most elk don't just come running over. Just like when your wife calls at you, most of the time you don't just, jump up and go running over.
Yeah.
Or if your buddy calls you, you're gonna work your way that way, but you may also, stop and grab your French fries off the counter or grab a drink or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like the elk. They may be going, okay, I'm going to go over there and see that cow, but I'm going to get a few more blades of grass here, and, by the way, I got to get a drink, and I got to take a leak, and I'm on my way.
Or in like I show in the video, the Shiner Bull, originally I got that whole sequence, and I thought it was pretty boring until I kind of took a step back and watched it. I'm like, no. It's not a sexy call-in, but what it showed was how, because it was open and the way that the train was, you could sit and watch the bull and what he was doing. The bull was interested. He knows where I am, but he just stands there and he looks and he's waiting to see the cow that he hears me calling. He's waiting to see the cow move. He's waiting to see some action. And what you just said, that people move in too quick, and I totally agree with that, because there's a lot of emphasis on aggressive tactics. People want to go, 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 go. Okay, well, that's fine. But keep in mind that you may make a vocalization, and whether he bugles at you or he doesn't, if he hears you, and if you've been loud enough and he hears you, 99.9% of the time, he's going to pick his head up, he's going to be staring in your direction, he's going to have his ears locked, he's going to be looking and listening. And it's incredible, if you didn't sit and watch these videos, it's incredible to see some bulls just how long they stand and wait. And so having the patience to let the setup work is crucial for, at least in my opinion, for my success, how I do things. That's crucial, and that's why I kind of let things run as long as they run. But to kind of bring it back to what we where we started, that section of the hunt, when you find them, you call them, and you bring them in and you kill them. Yay! That's the fun, awesome part. But for this particular video that you're talking about, the whole second half of that video, to be honest with you, it's 2012. I've sat on it for 3 years. Why? Because I didn't know if I wanted to share it. It's not. I'll tell people I broke down. I kind of lost it for a little bit. When you're saying the lows, for 16 hours, trying to pick apart a mountain and sitting there waiting and second guessing myself and trying to figure out what's going on, and then I think I found him, and no, I didn't, and then I, run the mountain. Here it comes. I did find him, and geez, now what am I going to do for the next 15 minutes? And how am I going to make this happen? And then all of a sudden it happens, and then it was an emotional roller coaster, and I really, that's not something that you normally show, but I was going. Let me just say this, Jay. I was going to post it for the module guys, and I think I had gotten myself to that point where I was going to post it and share it, because I think there's a lot of lessons in it that's valuable. However, I will say that, one of the things that gave me confidence, I won't even say confidence, that kind of reassured me and kind of made me smile, was your podcast with Steven Ranella. That, he was talking about that when he got, first started going, they had those hunts that he thought were miserably unsuccessful. But yet the producers are like, oh no, this is awesome. And people loved seeing the hardship of the hunt. They loved seeing the fact that not every hunt is successful. It related to them. And so I think that's why, I am in a happier place, if you will, about what I put together in this video, how I presented it. The fact that, I shared we got the bull. We got the bull and
got the bull, got the meat,
yep,
and got everything.
Everything was fine. It worked out, but I think it's relatable. Like you said, if you have never been in the situation where you made a marginal hit, you just haven't hunted long enough. It will happen at some point. Now, the big question is, now what? Now what? What are you going to be able to follow through and do what it takes to get it done and finish the job?
Well, and I think watching the video brought up so many questions and comments from myself in things and thinking about situations that I've been in. I've got a couple questions that I want to ask you about the scenario when the bull was coming in, and I'm curious as to see your answer.
Okay.
When the bull committed and came through the opening in which you knew with the trails and such that he was going to come through, he then breaks into more of an opening. He looked like he was slightly downhill from you. He was walking from your from your right to left. And he finally came, there was one tree that he had to clear, and he finally comes walking in, which is going to make him in the wide open. One question I would have from you from a situational standpoint, at that point, if you would have already been at full draw, what do you think the outcome would have been? Would you have shot earlier, or would you have still kind of waited for him to swing? Because I kind of like the quartering away shot that you had.
Yeah.
But you would have been able to, if he would have stopped, and looked around, you would have been able to zip him if you were at full draw. Give me your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Quick answer, yes. Even now, when I watch it now, I sit there and beat myself up going, why are you not drawing your bow, and why are you not stopping him right there? I think you know this from cameras. Angles, up and down angles, it's hard, unless you're looking lateral to the mountain, it's really hard to really get a real appreciation of how steep something is. I might as well have been sitting in a tree stand. That was extremely sharp downhill.
And that doesn't come out as much in the video because of the probably because of how wide of an angle it was. It doesn't come out.
Exactly. And a lot of times with photographs, when you're looking downhill, you just don't appreciate it. So that's why, part of my conundrum in that whole situation was the fact that I'm like, why is there no blood trail? I know my shot was entered high, and it had to come out low. And so I'm thinking, you should be just draining blood left and right. But anyway, no, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people that talk about a quartering away shot, and they like the idea that you can go through more of their lungs and more of their chest cavity. However, there's a fine line on how steep that angle gets. I truly believe I like a broadside shot, because if you mess up left or right a couple inches, you're still going to go through the heart lungs. You're still going to go through that heart lungs. However, you start putting a strong quartering away angle. If you, like me, I don't know how I did it, Jay. I don't know how I did it. Now, well, let me just finish. Let me finish my thought, and then I'll kind of take a segue a minute, right? So a hard quartering away angle, if you vary yourself a couple inches, you could significantly affect whether that arrow goes through one lung or it hits the liver and then goes out the far lung. You know what I mean? Just the way the angle is. So I would much, much rather shoot him broadside. Now, in this case, I'm not making excuses. All I will say is, I got the camera turned around, and this is the thing when you're doing a solo, you do it yourself, solo, I'm filming myself, I'm hunting myself, I'm doing everything myself. So I got the camera moved around, and the bull steps out and he clears, and so I get the release on the string. Hindsight 2020, I should have just drawn that bow. If he saw me, he would have stopped and looked, and it would have been over. But I thought, at that time, from what I remember, I thought I will let him just walk by me a little bit just so I'm kind of behind his peripheral vision, and then I'll stop him. Well, when I gave him that chuckle to stop him, he took 2 or 3 more steps and turned to go down the hill and then stopped. Well, he was more out of position than I would have liked. And so no, hindsight being 2020, I would have just stopped. I would have drawn my bow and stopped him right down below me to where he was broadside, and I would have just smoked him. And if I had made a bad shot and I was a couple inches off, it still would have double lunged him right then and there, and I don't think he would have died in the frame.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, and then the next thing is, and obviously you know that it's easy to look back at a video and be an armchair quarterback, but being an armchair quarterback, looking back at the video, okay, so you hit him, he kind of runs quarters down and kind of goes around, and you can just kind of see his head over there in the bushes, and he's standing. I think you put on the screen, that's when you knew something wasn't right. Yep. My question for you is, so in that situation, if you would have absolutely double lunged him, more than likely when he was over there standing still, he would have been wobbling and then started doing the funky chicken, and he would have tumbled over.
Yep.
At the point when you realize that that was not the case, now this is what I'm going to say. I always tell people, because I've had to go through this the hard way, no matter what, unless you see the elk fall, you wait a minimum of 30 minutes before you even attempt to go closer, to look for tracks, look for your arrow, and you may have cut. I don't know how the timing of the scene was. I want to get your take on either this situation or other situations. If you don't see that bull fall in eyesight, how long do you typically wait before you make a move?
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%, a minimum of 30 minutes. And I'm telling you, if you haven't been in that situation, 30 minutes might as well be 6 days. I mean, it seems like it's just forever, and so you're like, oh, it's 20 minutes, it's good enough. No, minimum 30. I actually like to set and say, okay, 45 minutes to an hour. And yes, this is a part that I did kind of truncate and cut down. I went down, in this video, I shoot, he's standing there, I say, okay, he's been there long enough, standing there, that something's not right. I'm going to kind of swing around, I'm going to drop down, I'm going to try to get another arrow into him, I'm going to see if I can do something. And so, as I go down, it doesn't work, he was out of position, blah, 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 blah. I pick up my arrow, I see my arrow, it's covered with bubbles, which most, if you got bubbles on your arrow, you say, okay, lung hit. Well, I did. I waited about 30 minutes, a little bit more than that, and then I went down and started following. Here's the other thing that I will say. Blood does not lie.
Yeah.
I had bubbles on my arrow. Yes, that indicates a lung hit. However, it does not indicate whether I hit a front lung, middle lung, or the tip top of the back edge of a lung. Depending on where you hit a lung, there's a huge variation on what that animal's going to do. If I punch the front of the lungs and I go right around the bronchial tubes and all the arteries that are around there, that bull is going to die within sight. If I hit him mid-lungs, just a center punch those lungs, it's away from the heart, he's going to die, and he's going to die pretty quick, but he's going to be able to move a little bit. He's going to move off a little ways. But if you catch the very top back of those lungs, or worse yet, you catch one lung, oh my gosh, they can go a long way. So I look at this and I watch this video, I'm like, Chris, you know better. I looked at the arrow, I said, I thought in my mind's eye, I thought I made a good shot. I was like, I saw where the arrow went. It looked to me, it went through both lungs. And so when I found my arrow and it had bubbles on it, in my mind, I'm like, no, it went through both lungs. He should be dead. But when I showed the blood trail, and I'll bet you picked up on this. I picked up on it when I watched the video. I looked at it, I'm like, that's liver blood.
It's dark red.
Yep, it's a deep, and I was like, that's liver blood. If you see liver blood, just stop.
Yep.
Just stop. And just give him an hour or two. I'm serious, because if it's a liver shot, he's going to go a short ways, and he's going to bed down. He's not going to feel good. He's going to be sick. Just give him a couple hours. Even if he doesn't die within those couple hours, he's going to get sick. He's going to get stiffened up. He's not going to feel well. And he's going to be a little bit easier to approach when you do try to follow him up.
I think there's a bunch of lessons to be learned, and I think this video is probably going to be one of the most talked about and most coveted videos of the members of the elk module of Roe Hunting Resources, because there's so many lessons to be learned from this. And I think one of them is you touched on it perfectly. Just because you have bubbles does not mean dead bull.
Yeah.
What it means is you've hit lungs. You don't know if you have double lung or single lung. If you double lung them, most of the time they fall within sight, and the distance in which it looked like that bull ran and was standing over there, that's long enough for you to think probably not double lung. Although he could have just walked behind that one tree and been laid down there and you wouldn't have known it.
Yep.
I think people need to know this. If you see dark red, that's most all the time liver. If you get bubbles, yes, that's lung, but it doesn't necessarily mean both lungs.
Yep.
So an elk on one lung can do amazing things. I've seen it. I've seen it in rifle situations. I've seen it in archery situations. And one lung, you are in for a long road, so you have to be patient.
Yeah.
I think one thing is important to note in that situation also. Let's say that let's say it's right before dark and you're real questionable about your hit. One of the things that I would say in that same scenario, and I want you to weigh in on this, is you have to be very careful that when you walk out to go to camp, to leave that bull, say if you have to leave him overnight, in my opinion, you want to walk 180 degrees the opposite direction the last place you saw the bull.
Yep.
Because if you don't go directly away from where you saw the bull, you have a chance of jumping that bull up. And I will say from experience of just elk hunting with friends and clients and what have you, if you jump a bull up wherever he's hit, your chances of finding him, in my opinion, just dropped at least 50%.
Yep. Jay, again, man, I agree with you. And in the video, I did the follow-up. I walked up. I said, okay, he was standing here. You see the blood pool. I watched him disappear right around this corner. I'm going to sneak up there. I'm going to see. Well, as soon as I take a couple steps, I can see the bull. He's still on his feet. He's alive. So I try to make a play to get another arrow into him. It doesn't work. He spooks, takes off down the hill. At that point, you see me, I cut back, and I'm way up on the mountain, and you nailed it. I talk about this, and it's interesting. It's the same exact principle. I talk about this with turkey hunting. I talk about elk hunting. You'll hear people talk about, setting up, calling, getting a response that's close, and then moving forward to get set up, or moving left or right to get set up. And I have been caught sometimes. You take 2 steps forward, you take 2 steps left or right, and all of a sudden there may be an alley, a channel, or just a way the trees line up where, pink, there he is. He might be 100 yards away, but now, bam, he just saw you, and you're busted. The same goes in this situation, because they will do squirrely things. And this bull, he did a huge button hook around, and yeah, if you just say, well, I'm out of here, and I just go, if you're not cognizant of how you're getting out of there, you absolutely could either run into him and bump him, or even worse yet, just have your scent drift over him to where he just picks up and he just sneaks out of there, and then you don't even hear a direction where he goes. We had in 2002, I remember this very, very clearly. In 2002, I was hunting with a buddy down in southern Colorado where it's very, very hot. I mean, we're talking 90-plus degrees in the afternoons. And same situation. Bull came in. We called the bull in. He made a shot. Ended up being pretty much almost identical shot like this one. The bull took off. We tracked it. Could not find it. So we backed out of there, decided to leave. Well, we came back the next morning, and we started with a different sunlight, just different light coming through the trees. We stopped right where he had stopped, or where he had shot the bull. We're standing there getting a game plan. I look up the hill, and I'm like, I don't remember a rock being up there. I put my binoculars up, and the bull's just laying there. The bull's laying 100 yards from us, right from where we shot him. He did this huge almost circle and came back. Well, if we hadn't, we went a little ways, we tracked him. As soon as we realized we couldn't find him, we were like, we're out. And we just slipped back. We just got out of there and just went and backtracked out the same way we came in. He never even saw us. He stayed there and he died, and everything was good. But I agree wholeheartedly. When you realize that you need to back out 180 degrees from just completely opposite of where you think that bull might end up. And in this case, I did. I just got out and I just climbed 3/4 of the way up the mountain just to make sure my scent wasn't out there. But here's the other thing that I mentioned, and I don't know if I touched on it enough, but I mentioned in there, part of the other reason why I climbed up the mountain was I wanted to get a vantage point. Because if that animal was still up on his feet and just kind of moseying and just trying to get out of Dodge, I wanted to be able to get above that timber and get myself in a spot where
you could watch.
Yep, I'm just going to sit and watch and make sure he does not leave this patch of timber. If I don't see him leave the patch of timber, then at least I have some sort of semblance of confidence in the morning that he's got to be in there somewhere. So That's another thing too, is I know you talk about glassing, with elk where you are, but for the high country stuff, sometimes, man, getting yourself out of there and in a vantage point and just sit and wait and let things go, come back the next morning, but sit and wait and watch until dark and make sure they don't leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely trying to get a bead on direction, because direction a lot of times is everything. And I think, and I'm giving this advice humbly, trying to give advice that I've seen through experiences, but I am in no means, some great tracker. I do pride myself on trying to be very detail oriented, and I have in situations where I've been asked to come help buddies or what have you try and find elk. I have had pretty good success. One thing I would tell people, and we're getting a little bit off subject, but we're kind of in the realm of the subject, is Chris talked about in the video how the bull just through the pine needles just didn't leave any tracks. And that is absolutely at times will baffle you, and you will think there's no way the elk came through here. Chris saw the elk go through there, and he still couldn't find tracks. So what do you do if you don't find tracks? Okay, so what I do is I always like to go back to Last Blood, and I always like to follow whatever track that I can follow from there. Even if there's a bunch of tracks going every direction, a lot of times I'll try and pick the same size track and try and use the direction that the elk is going and follow that track until I pick up some more sign, blood, where they've been drooling, different stuff that you can follow. But I think it's important to make note that when you are following tracks, they have to leave a track. They may go through a period 20, 30 yards where you can't see the track, but you will eventually find their tracks. They leave tracks. So a lot of times you have to get on your hands and knees and go one step at a time. I learned there's a guy from Utah, Lynn Hunt, Kanab, Utah, who is an incredible tracker, has a reputation of an incredible tracker. And one of the things, when a friend of mine shot a bull and Lynn was camped nearby and we went over and got him, and one of the things I learned was he got on the bull's tracks kind of where before it was hit, and kind of got a feel for the stride of the bull, And then as I watched him track, he was kind of knowing where the front foot would step, knowing where the back foot, and I would see him kind of with his hands kind of just walking, and he was striding that bull. And it's worked for me several times where you kind of get a sense of the bull's stride, and the tracks don't lie. So you have to get on the tracks, and then a lot of times once you follow a track for 100 or couple hundred yards, boom, then you find another drop of blood, then you bring your GPS over, you've got your last blood, and then, you have to take it slow when you're tracking a wounded animal. You have to take it really slow, and you have to be very detail-oriented, and don't let anybody that's helping you get out in front of you and be making circles. There's a time to make grids, like Chris will show in the video. There's times for that, when you've exhausted everything else, but if you can always go back to last blood and try and get on the tracks. That is your best chance to find a wounded animal.
Yeah, I agree. And, and I guarantee you have a similar situation where you are, in my situation. Now, and again, not making excuses, I will say I am not at that level. I'm with you. I've seen some guys that are just incredible at they're like, nope, there's a track. Well, if you've ever hunted Africa and you watch those trackers out there, I mean, my gosh, they just make you look pathetic. But there are some, it's an art form. I mean, it really is. And I've even watched some guys that they'll flat lay on the ground, just lay on the ground. They're not looking for the track per se. They're just looking at where the needles got pushed up slightly more than they should be. You know what I mean? They're just, it's just, the other thing too is sometimes you're going to get situations where all of a sudden the elk is going to run through areas where it's just littered with tracks. And so in my situation here, I mean, he went through the pine needles. I couldn't believe that I was not able to see. I just couldn't discern anything and then all of a sudden he got down, where he went, all of a sudden got into an area where, I mean, my gosh, there had been a whole pile of elk piling through there and in fresh tracks. So the other thing that I will do, me personally, and this is not foolproof, I will say that right now, but if you lose the track, see kind of what, look back, and I will mark with toilet paper or whatever, I will mark those spots of blood so that way I can look behind me and I can actually see the path. Visually, I can see flag of where the blood spots are and where he's traveling. And if he's moving at a decent clip, a lot of times you can just say, okay, that momentum is going to continue in kind of a general manner. So I'll turn around, I'll look and say, okay, where is the likely avenue that he went through? Sometimes you say, okay, well, there's the trail. He's been on this trail. The trail continues. He's probably still on the trail. And so You might be able to follow it 50, 60, 80 yards or more, and all of a sudden, boink, here's a drop of blood. You may not have had any sign that you were able to discern in that distance, but because it was a continuation of a logical progression, you were able to pick it up. However, that's if the animal is moving at a good clip. Typically, in my experience, if they're moving at a good clip, they will continue that momentum. However, but if all of a sudden you get down to where it's, drop, 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 and they are just walking and standing and walking and standing and walking and standing, don't automatically assume that they're just going to take the easy route, because that's where I've seen them start wandering and just doing all sorts of squirrely things. Where you're like, why the heck did you just walk through here? You just walked through a blowdown. Why did you walk? But they did. So take note of how the animal is moving, not just where the blood is. Is he moving quickly? Like you talk about with stride. Is he have that consistent stride? Or is he slowed down? Does it look like he's starting to wander? Does it look like he's standing there watching his back trail, figuring out what's going on? And is he adjusting accordingly? Because and that's the other thing too. If you start following that trail too early, he may be mortally wounded. He might be a dead bull on you walking. But if you start following too quickly and he's up on his feet, he's going to be watching his back trail. And if he detects that something is following his back trail, That's when they start button hooking around. They start climbing. They start dropping. They start doing all sorts of squirrely things to get themselves into a position where they're out of the line of sight, but they can sit and watch where they just came from and keep tabs on whatever predator, whether it's me or whether it's a bear or anybody else, is following behind them. And if you're following too soon, you're just going to continually bump that elk, and you'll never even realize you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. Chris, I want to tell you that video, like I said, is awesome, and I think you're going to get a lot of great feedback from the video, and I really appreciate you posting it. I know the elk module, the Roe Hunting Resources guys, the members are going to love that. I want to shift focus a little bit and talk to you a little bit about selfish mew versus the estrus scream. I noticed in the module you talk about that, and we don't have to go into super detail, but it's interesting. You may have seemed to have changed a bit of your understanding of those two different calls.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, the beauty of videoing everything that we do and going out and just videoing raw behavior, not even in a hunting situation, just videoing and recording vocalizations and behavior repeatedly. We started seeing, for people that don't understand, you'll hear people talk about the estrus mew, the estrus whine, the estrus scream, estrus whatever. I do not subscribe to that terminology per se. I do not believe there is a specific vocalization that actually relays estrus anything. Now, it doesn't mean that this vocalization exists. We've got video of it, and there's other people that share video of it. It's not saying that the vocalization, that really raspy, loud, long, drawn out, scream or mew that you'll hear people talk about. Yes, cow elk will do that. I just don't think, and I can show you why, but I don't think it has anything to do with estrus. Now, that's not to say that I'm not going to criticize anybody that wants to call it that or wants to associate with that, because it can
Chris, let's look at it from a perspective of, I think Steve Chappell's got some great video of an elk doing that, and I think Will Primos, I think, is the one that coined the term estrus scream. Then it was the Chappell scream, and I will be honest, at the time, I think it was an incredible marketing strategy to say that, because who doesn't want to have a call that mimics the estrus sound?
Yes.
Now, in everybody's defense, I don't think anybody did anything to try and mislead. Nope. I think it could be very well argued that it is the estrus sound, but I think you're right in that we hear that sound in other situations that are not even in the breeding period at all.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that leads me to kind of think what you're saying is it's more of the selfish mew, and a cow that really wants attention.
Well,
really is demanding attention for whatever reason.
Exactly, and we actually, even in the on the video there, elk herd on the move, there is a large group of cows and calves. They're all moving together. They have a very large, a very mature herd bull right there. And here are these cows doing that vocalization with the bull standing behind them. He isn't even paying 2 cents of attention to him. And they have no care in the world about this bull. But they stop doing it when the calf shows up. And so that's what I started really looking at. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. People were always saying that it's a unique vocalization. And at first, when we first started the elk module, I was like, all right, well, I can go with that. I'll buy into that ideology, if you will, or that idea or theory, if you will. But I don't think it has to do with estrus anything. However, over time, what we started looking at is, if you see when they do this vocalization, in the situations that they're in, what they're trying to accomplish, who they're communicating with, what the update video talks about is, I am not convinced anymore that in fact it is its own particular vocalization. it very well may be just nothing more than an extension of a lost mu that just carries the intensity higher, 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 and higher. So if you look at the progression of vocalizations, you've got the lost mu. Everybody talks about the lost mu, and it's legit. It's, looking for a response. But then, the cows, they can take that lost mu, they can be louder with it, they can drag it out longer, they can add those frustrated whines to it and add that emotion. They can do, long mews, they can stretch it out and really be a little bit, what some people call pleading with it. But yet, when you still continue up that continuum, at some point, you can only get so loud. At some point, you can only drag it out so much. Whereas if all you do is you add a little bit of a growl to it, you've just increased that intensity. You've increased increased the intensity, and you've changed that intensity to the utmost level. It really does coincide with everything that a lost mu does. It's just extremely intense. And so that's kind of where I'm starting to think, rethink myself on saying, I don't know if it's actually a standalone vocalization. I really do. I'm changing my mind now to where I really do think it's nothing more than an extension of the intensity level of a lost mu.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff right there, Chris. I think in our next episode, we're going to talk about getting ready for elk season, trail cameras, using glassing as an effective tactic for hunting elk. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of your targeted strategies.
Sure.
But I think we've had a great episode here, and I think people are going to enjoy it. And Chris, I'd like you to tell the listeners how they can find you and the best way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, they can just the best way to get with the elk module stuff is just go to www.roehuntingresources.com, just ROE huntingresources.com. They can also find us on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel that's Roe Hunting Resources. We have our Facebook page that's Roe Hunting Resources, Instagram, the whole 9 yards. But if they want to get in the module, just go to www.roehuntingresources.com. And like always, for you guys, anybody who's listening to this, we offer a 20% discount off of it. All you need to do is when you go to sign up, there's a little spot there that says, if you want to put out a coupon code or a promo code or something like that, just click on that and just J Scott Podcast, all one word, J Scott Podcast. It knocks 20% off, and away you go. So,
and I think I might add too that as extensive as the elk module is in the spring, I get a real kick out of the turkey module. I'm not much of a whitetail hunter, but I know that the whitetail portion of the module with the behavioral and all the different stuff is just as extensive. So you have the Roe Hunting Resources membership, which is the full membership. I believe it's a 1-year membership.
Yep.
You can correct me. And then they can also sign up for the elk module, the turkey module, and the deer module on their own. Is that correct?
That's right. And most people, you're absolutely right. Most people, if you want it year long, if you just want the full library card, and that's how I kind of classify this. Basically, what you're doing for the subscription, it just gives you a library card that you can get in there and look at what's in there. If you just want the elk stuff, you can just get the elk module. It's 3 months, and with the J Scott Podcast discount, it's $20. I mean, it's pretty cheap. So you can watch it for 3 months. But if you want everything, you can get the annual subscription. That's 365 days a year. That's all year long, and it opens up the turkey module and the deer module. Now, I will say for everybody, we've got over 18 hours now of video for elk, but the turkey and the deer are not nearly as big. But there's still really good stuff in there. But you can also, if all you care about in the spring is turkeys, you say you get the elk module now, but you're not, in this spring, winter, or whatever, you want to get some turkey stuff. Yeah. I think that's $15 or something like that. So yeah, you can log in 3 months, just watch the turkey stuff or the deer stuff or whatever you want. So
awesome, buddy. Well, it's always awesome having you on. We get tons of feedback from the 3 episodes that you've been on, the 1 turkey and the 2 elk episodes. Tons and tons of comments and feedback, and I know that people really enjoy. I've gotten emails back from people that have signed up for the Roe Hunting Resources modules, and them telling me how thankful they are that I pointed this out to them. And so, kudos to you for the hard work, and I look forward to our next episode. It's going to be a great 2015 elk season, and the next episode we'll touch on kind of getting prepared for the season and all the different things that you're doing. We're going to talk about trail cameras and glassing. So until then, buddy, God bless you, and we'll talk to you next time.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time that you've had me on, and look forward to it again. So, yeah, God bless.